I recently attended my first fighting game tournament since moving to Ireland a few months ago. There doesn't seem to be much of a local in-person scene in my region, so I traveled to Dublin for the Winter Showdown at the Irish Gaming Market, which I believe is one of the Irish FGC's biggest events. IGM was at the Royal Marine Hotel in Dunleary, which is outside of Dublin. It's a pretty-looking seaside venue. It's just a short walk away from the port. I had my cameraman collect some footage, and we gracefully entered the building. Once inside, we entered the tournament zone, a ballroom that was packed with a bunch of different setups for a bunch of different games. They had PS5s for Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8. I think Grand Blue was also being run somewhere, but I'm not sure on what. And by the time we were there for the Street Fighter bracket, they had Marvel 3 up on the big projector. IGM was also an officially sanctioned 2XKO tournament. Riot actually gave them a really hefty bonus to the prize pool and gave them a ton of these basically instruction manuals to give out to whoever wanted them. As much as I was happy to take a breather from 2XKO since this trip happened when I was deep in the trenches working on that video, I totally would have entered that bracket if we had more time and money, because it seemed like a lot of fun.
The hamster's not on the front page. Where's the hamster?
He's not there. Playing a tournament at a convention was a pretty new experience. I'm used to playing at bars.
He said he's not shaking his fucking hand, I'm drunk, that's crazy. He said I'm not shaking your fucking hand.
In game shops and even an esports venue, but I've never played with people in cosplay before. That was really cool. I'm already brainstorming ideas for my outfit for next time. There were downsides though. The main stage where the top 16 was streamed wasn't really a stage, and the only seating was at the setups, some of which were still being used. So we had to kind of cram in next to the commentary desk to get a seat, and I had to crane my neck up to see the screen as the games were being shown on the projector. Luckily, I'm vanilla, so this part didn't affect me, but one of the setups was also missing one of the DLC characters, which just reminded me how crazy difficult and expensive it is to run events like this. Unluckily, the bracket being run on PS5s did mean that neither of us could use our preferred controller, since I've got that Cami fighting pad and my cameraman uses an Xbox controller. With more time and money, we could have bought a converter to make those controllers work, but we made do with PS5 pads, which I did think to bring, but the TOs had an abundance of spares just in case, which was super cool of them. We didn't really get any good footage from our matches since we weren't sure of the etiquette on recording other people's gameplay, especially since these are all strangers to us at the moment. So apologies for the reused B-roll of the panning crowd shots and whatever we end up scraping from the Twitch stream. This was my cameraman's first tournament ever, so we'd been doing quite a bit of training in the months prior, but life circumstances kinda got crazy in the last couple of weeks ahead of the tournament, so we weren't nearly as well practiced on the day of as we would have liked. I went 1-2 and my cameraman went 0-2, but we both exceeded our expectations. I definitely could have done better against the Jamie I played in the first round. Jamie gets me pre-tilted on character select. I hate that guy with everything in my heart. If I had kept my cool and stayed a little bit more composed, I think I could have won that set. I ended up getting eliminated by a good Sea Viper player, who I managed to take a game off of despite having literally never played against Sea Viper in my life before that match. This was maybe a week or two after Viper came out, I think, and I'd really only been playing with my cameraman during that time period. Speaking of, my cameraman was extremely nervous going into this event and felt like she didn't belong and was worried about all the normal things you'd expect someone to be worried about as a new tournament player. She held her own though. She won a game in her first round match, and we later learned that the person she played was ranked like way higher than her, so it was a really good effort. There's room to grow, but I'm really proud of both of us, and I'm excited to see how we both do moving forward. Sadly, so ends our run at IGM Winter Showdown 2025, but after drowning in pools, there was plenty of time to explore the actual M in IGM before we went back upstairs to watch Top 16. Of course, only after refreshing with a really sad, dry, disappointing cheeseburger. The kind of cheeseburger that pushes you closer to going vegan, like a living sentient being didn't deserve to die for this kind of thing, you know? Anyways, onto the market. Forgive me for being an American stereotype, but I really was expecting it to be a bit bigger. The regional gaming convention in the city I used to live in was like several times bigger than this, but I've been told that nerd culture and, consumerism are way more popular in the States than here, where gaming and anime and stuff is still relatively niche. Everybody there seemed to be having a really good time though, and I imagine I would have enjoyed it more if we had a bigger budget and less specific things that I was looking for. I don't watch a ton of anime, and I'm not really in a position to collect retro games at the moment, so that rules out the bulk of what was on offer. Which, makes sense. It's called Irish Gaming Market. I was mostly on the lookout for art, figures, and other trinkets of fighting game characters specifically, but the only thing I saw was a print of Morrigan, which I was glad to see at first since I thought more would come, but that was really it. And besides, the print itself was a bit too anime boob for my taste. And look, I know saying this Morrigan art is too anime boob is like going to a sushi restaurant and saying, I don't really like seafood, but hey, I contain multitudes. We took a small break outside before going back upstairs for the top 16 of the bracket. Lake Nova won a dominant Grand Finals reset after being swept by Nutrient in the Winners Finals, but the atmosphere wasn't nearly as electric as I'm used to back home. Maybe there's some context I'm missing, or maybe the vibes are just different, but I would have expected people to be losing their minds during this set, and instead it was mostly just some clapping and a couple woos. I would have liked to stay for the end of the 2xKO bracket, because the atmosphere for that was much livelier, and the person that everyone was cheering for ended up winning the whole thing. It probably would have been fun to be there for that, but we had to get dinner and get back to our hotel, so we headed off into the night. Leaving the venue, I was feeling really nostalgic for the scene I left behind in the States. It's the closest I've come to feeling homesick since I first left my city back in February. I wasn't even in that scene for very long. I only started playing seriously in 2023, shortly after Street Fighter VI came out, so I only played with these guys for less than 2 years, but it was still a huge deal to me. I felt immediately welcome, like everybody was just glad and eager to see somebody new show up. I'll never forget, the first weekly I went to was at a local gamer bar, and a guy who I had never met saw that I was playing Cammy, and then stayed there with me after the tournament, even after the bar closed, going over combos and moves to practice, and teaching me techniques I had never thought of before. Like, blah blah blah, Justin Wong, Punk, Mena RD, who cares? Choppers is my goat. And in my last night in the city before I left, he and a bunch of other people came out to the game shop with me and played fighting games and drank beer and sang karaoke until 3 in the morning. That's what fighting games are to me. That's what community is to me. Maybe that same thing does exist here, and I just haven't tapped into it. I might need to work a little harder to socialize in a more niche, spread out community, especially as someone new to the scene, new to the country even. I'll do my best to be a proper member of Ireland's FGC, and I appreciate the hell out of how hard everyone worked to put IGM together. It was still a fun and impressive event. But, man, AFAS forever. After an emo stroll through the neighborhood and around the port, my cameraman and I found an Indian restaurant for dinner, which was pretty good. I'd been craving sag paneer for a while, and this really hit the spot. We hustled to catch the next bus back to the hotel after dinner, which ended up being a mistake because the bus ran out of coolant or something, and we had to wait like 20-30 minutes for a replacement bus to come scoop us up. The rest of the night was uneventful, and we caught brunch the next morning at some bougie cafe nearby. We got ube lattes, which were actually pretty good, and I had some tasty French toast, though they gave me the wrong kind at first. I didn't want to send it back, but my cameraman insisted since this was already an over-budget business trip, and we wanted to make sure we got what we paid for. Also, she doesn't like rhubarb. As we started our trek back across the country, we took a tram to St. Stephen's Green and had a nice walk around. There were some people starting a probably unethical feeding frenzy with the ducks, and we saw somebody trying to befriend a squirrel, which I think my cameraman also wanted to do. On the way through the city, we also spotted a small lucha-themed Mexican place, which is total parm bait. I'll definitely be stopping there next time I'm in the city. Hopefully it's good. In the end, it was a good weekend, even if it wasn't really what I expected. I played all right, all things considered, and there's definitely room to grow, especially socially. Being a new immigrant, as well as the general vibes of the last year or so has really kicked my social anxiety back up, but I'll have to get over it if I want that feeling of improvement through community again. Despite being on the lookout for fighting game merch, I only ended up spending money on trading cards. The only thing I got at the market was this Fuecoco card from a vendor called Poke Olive. I came to them looking for pretty specific things with a relatively small budget, but they still went out of their way to help track down what I think was literally the only card they had with them that filled the criteria. Super helpful, and when I have the budget to go looking for more cards, I'll be going back to them for sure. Alright, while we're here, I might as well talk about what I'm hoping to put together. All of my cards are still kind of a hodgepodge after the move, but I want to have a binder with every starter Pokemon and all of their evolutions, all from their debut sets, so like base set for the Kanto starters, Neo Genesis for Johto, etc. I also want full art or art rares or whatever they call them in the various sets of everybody who has them, so this Fuecoco will do really nicely for that part. Someday I'll get them more organized, and also Pokemon, please print fancy art cards of the Chikorita line, I am begging. Oh, one last thing. We also stopped at Gamers World on our way out of Dublin and grabbed the Jinx starter deck for Riftbound, since I guess I'm a Riot girl now. The game looks fun, but I still need to actually, play it myself. I tracked down a Victor starter deck in my city the other day, so hopefully somebody will game with me soon. Anyway, that was my tournament experience that mostly just ended up being a Dublin weekend vlog. Enjoy some pack opening content, and hopefully I'll see you soon with a new video.